Welcome to another TOG chat. I'm Bob Osborne, principal of the Osborne Group, and I'm joined by my colleague Laurel McCombs, senior philanthropy advisor, also of the Osborne Group. How are you today, Laurel?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we have a very special episode of TOG Chat, which is Bob and Laurel's fundraising pet peeves. And this is where we complain a little bit, but complain in a constructive way about things that bother us in fundraising that are maybe common, that we wish were different. And so where we talk about what bothers us about certain things and maybe what we could do a little bit differently. So this should be fun. This is what we do when we're just talking to each other. Um, but we're gonna make it official. So why don't we start? We'll start with an easy one. I think this is one that we both share. I think you called it the term pitching, and I'm gonna call it the term selling. But I think it's pretty much the same thing. So why don't you go ahead, Laurel, and tell us what what bothers you about the term pitching, and sort of what are the larger implications of the use of that word, and maybe what should we be doing differently?
Yeah, part of what bothers me is I hear it so often. I so often hear people say like, we just need to get our pitch right, or like I just need a good. Can you write me just a good pitch, or I need a pitch deck, or I just hear it so often. And you once said, and I quote this all the time, that fundraising is not a meritocracy, right? So this is not a business where you can just stand up in front of people and tell them why you are the best and just get money. Now, of course, I'm not talking about like when you get invited to some social entrepreneurship pitch session where that's the whole purpose. I get it. Like there are things out there like that, but I'm talking about regular everyday fundraising with folks. And, the reality is that there are hundreds of thousands of really wonderful nonprofits out there doing really good work. And this isn't about just telling people why they should give you money and expecting them to respond, right? We have to engage folks. We have to know what motivates them. We have to align values and interests. And that doesn't happen by me just having a sheet of paper that I read off of and telling you why we're the best. And I'm curious if you agree with this. I've said this out loud to people before and said, no study to back this up. This is Laurel's opinion only. But if you looked at big donors and the biggest gifts they give, I do not believe that the biggest gifts that big donors make are to the organizations whose passions they have the great, or for the missions that they have the most passion for. I think they give to the people who engage them the best, steward them the best, whether or not that mission is their greatest passion.
No, I actually agree with that 100%. And I use when I do, those of you who have done trainings with me, you've heard me talk about the story about some boards that I joined and why one of the boards that I joined, the boards that have missions that were most important to me are not necessarily the boards that I was most engaged with and that I gave the most money to. It's because you're exactly right, Laurel. I mean, it's not. It's when you have the clearest sense, I would say, that they're making a difference out there in the world. And it's more about vision and your knowledge of that vision and your belief that that vision can come true, rather than like the mission or how important you find a particular organization's mission. I agree with that 100%. I'm involved with organizations that I wouldn't necessarily have thought I was going to be involved with or didn't necessarily care too much about at all, to be honest, until I learned more about them and and that passion grew. So I think it is true that I'm passionate about them now, but I didn't necessarily start off with that passion, and I grew that passion through engagement. I think related to that is like the idea of selling, and the idea that we can go out there and make that pitch and then sell people something. So what are we selling them exactly, right? It's a very user-defined business that we're in. You don't get anything like tangible out of being philanthropic. It's really based on your own feelings and your own it's defined by you. Like you're going to get out of it what you define as for yourself as getting out of it. And there's no way for me as a fundraiser to kind of know what that is unless I listen to you and talk to you. In other words, it's got to come the other way. It's not going to be pushed out.
Well, and this is why, because we don't have physical, tangible products that we sell, that throughout the annals of time in nonprofit fundraising history, we've added ways to sell tchotchkes, right? And so, it's the it's the tote bag I get for making $100 donation. It's the, ticket to, it's playing golf. It's, all these things that, you know, I understand, and this isn't me saying you shouldn't do those things, but I think when we feel the need to actually sell people something, then we got to ask ourselves if we're actually, how far from like engaging people with our mission and our vision have we gotten away from? If, the biggest reason somebody wants to give to me is because I'm going to give them a tote bag, right?
Well, I mean, you're not going to give because you get a tote bag, right? Like, I can afford my own tote bag. I can buy my own mug. Like, if I'm considering a gift to you, that's not going to be the reason that I did it. Now, you can use it as a way to reinforce the motivations, to feel appreciated. But I always tell our clients 90% stewardship, 10% recognition. Recognition has its place, it can be valuable. I live in the West Village here in New York. Walking around with an NPR tote bag, does that matter? Yeah, a little bit. It does matter a little bit around here, but not as a reason in and of itself to give to NPR. But it's a fun little signal in my little world here. So yeah, so this is philanthropy. It's not we're not buying things. It's not shopping. And so we don't want to be pitching and we don't want to be selling. Okay. So your big pet peeve that you've been talking to me about for a while.
And this is the one I always, it sounds so blasphemous when I say it at first, but let me explain. So the two words that like just make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up are generosity and gratitude. And again, two words that are ubiquitous in our field. Like, I don't think I go a day without seeing some article, blog post reference to generosity or gratitude. And don't get me wrong, those are two really important things, because if my mom heard me say what I just said, she probably slap my little hand and be like, how could you not like generosity and gratitude? But I think the problem is that we have relied on those two things as the core and sole reason that generosity is why people give, and that gratitude is what will keep them giving, right? And for sure, like we talk about this a lot, right? Like, I think at the core, generosity is a huge part of what makes somebody want to be philanthropic in general, right? Like, you kind of need, like, we're not clearing hurdle one if somebody doesn't have like a core of generosity and just wants to be philanthropic, right? So that is true, but that doesn't mean that they will give to you, right? Like, generosity has nothing to do with why they choose the nonprofits that they give to. Generosity is core to what makes them philanthropic in the first place, but it is not the thing that is making them generous to your organization. And so we can't just rely on, oh, well, people will be generous, right? Or like, oh gosh, people are giving less. There's gosh, the number of times I've heard the term generosity crisis, right? Because donations are going down. And I say, no, there's not, people are not less generous. We are terrible at engaging and stewarding. And so why should they continue to be? That's why new donor retention rates are so low. That's why overall retention rates are so low, because we just don't do a very good job of engaging people because we rely on their generosity, and then we rely on gratitude as the only way that we steward gifts. I mean, the number of blog posts and articles and things I see that are like, improve your thank you notes. No, like, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm gonna get in trouble for that. I like, yes, have a good thank you note, but know that the thank you note is this much of stewardship and is this much of what's actually going to want keep somebody giving to you. Like not sending a thank you note, yeah, is like instant no more gifts, right? So yes, please do send a thank you note, but don't think that that's enough. And I get stuff from nonprofits constantly that all they say is, we're so grateful for your generosity. Thank you so much. We're grateful for your generosity. I don't need you to be grateful for my generosity. I need you to tell me that when you told me you were going to do a thing if I gave you money, and I want you to tell me that you did the thing. Like, don't be grateful. I mean, I'm going to be generous to somebody, but I'm going to be generous to the person who is actually delivering on the impact that they told me they were going to have. So again, I'm not saying don't be grateful and don't appreciate generosity, but don't think that that's the end all and be all to retaining your donors and doing good stewardship. Okay,
No,
Ray.
I couldn't agree. No, it was great. And I couldn't agree with you more, right? It's kind of the an old mindset, right? Like that's just charity as opposed to transformation and making the world better. Like, I think I think people are altruistic. I do think we do have some obligation to help those who may not do well in the current systems that we have for whatever reason. But right, that isn't my motivation for giving. It's like you said, I want to know that there was some kind of impact that you had, and that's mainly what I want to know. And right, and I'm a generous person, but I'm not giving out of generosity per se. I'm giving because I want to see the world be different in some way. And then related to that, I think it's just what we were talking about before with the recognition, is the gratitude part, right? Where it's like we're showing our gratitude, and that can be powerful when it's paired with strong stewardship. It can be the reason that you continue to give at this level and maybe not that level. It can be the reason that I get a little bit more involved with the organization, but it's not motivational, right? It's not going to be the reason that I'm giving. And so, yeah, like when I get a birthday card from an organization, I'm like, you're wasting your time. I don't need you to remember my birthday. That doesn't make me want to give you more money. It doesn't make me want to give you less money. It has nothing to do with why I'm giving. So yeah, thinking about reporting regularly on the impact of giving, I think is the important thing. You can throw in some nice recognition in there somewhere, the gratitude for giving, that's fine. But I do run across a lot of organizations where it's not 10% gratitude, 90% impact reporting. It's the reverse. And it's holiday cards and Thanksgiving cards and birthday reminders and the like, and it's just not as powerful. It drives me crazy. So I'm with you on that one, Laurel.
Well, and I will just say too, like I get that like sending somebody a birthday card might make you feel like you're demonstrating that you know them, but anybody can find people's birthdays. It's or there's ways like it's not like, unless you actually like go pick out a card that like is a funny inside joke to the two of us and you send me that card and then I'm like, haha, that's right, we did that thing. That's meaningful because I'm like, oh, they know me. But if you send me just a generic happy birthday card and I'm like, oh, it's like, I mean, I get one from my dentist. Like, you're not doing anything different than my dentist does, right? And I will say with the Thanksgiving card, great example this year. I had two Thanksgiving cards from two youth serving organizations in my hand. One was like a cute little drawing that like a kid in their program did. And inside it said, we are so thankful for your gift on this Thanksgiving. And that's it. And then the other one had like a picture of a kid and in their program, and it said, we are so thankful for your gift on this Thanksgiving because we were able to, and then it listed increase blah 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 by X% and blah blah. And I will just shout out to Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands, and that they were the ones who sent the good Thanksgiving card. I just got this postcard from them that talks about all the number of kids they served and all the percentage increases on positive youth outcomes in like a super simple postcard. And I will take this any day, every day over the same postcard that just says, thank you so much. We're so grateful for your support.
With you. I'm with you. That's a great example. So stop sending us birthday cards, people. Um, no, you can if you want to. Um,
But only if it's funny and personal.
yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, here's my slightly blasphemous one, and it's board diversity. And I know that sounds coming from us, that sounds like a tough one. What do I mean? What do I mean by board diversity? So, of course, we're all for board diversity. We actually think it's really, really important. You don't want to have group think. You want to be representative of the communities you serve as best you can. But I do think it can be used just as like a checkbox without it being strategic and without thinking it through. And I think there's sort of two aspects of that. So one, as a diverse person, nothing drives me up the wall more than when I'm asked to be involved with an organization that I have no previous involvement with and no real connection to. And it's very clear that someone, is like, let's think of some black people. And they're like, how about Bob Osborne? And then I get a call. This happened quite a bit after 2020 and George Floyd, but it's
Remember,
happened.
you had board offers streaming in.
I did. I had quite a few, and I'd say at least half of them had organizations I had nothing to do with or had minor involvement with, where they had no evidence that I would be passionate about the cause, would be a good board member at all. So don't use it just as a checkbox. Yeah, have board diversity. Make sure your board is in strategic alignment, but really like give it the thought that it deserves. And don't have a diverse board just for the sake of having a diverse board. Have a strategically diverse board in a way that serves your mission, in a way that serves your vision, in a way that is in strategic alignment with whatever your goals are. And then, it's really it's a real challenge, I think, when if you are on a board where you feel like you're just kind of there because represent some kind of group. That's not like a fun and not a fun experience either. And then again, if you just sort of do it for its own sake, it's hard, it's hard to be successful if you're just doing it as it should be virtuous in some way, but it's not actually serving your mission. So
Well,
um
yeah, and I would just add that, think about what the board experience feels like once you have recruited folks. Like, it, it's one thing to bring new diversity to your board. It's another thing to make people feel like they belong once they're there. And, there's just, so many stories that we've heard of folks who've gotten recruited to be on boards and then were alienated, were disregarded, weren't listened to, kind of patted on the head, and it was like, no, no, you did what you were supposed to do. You showed up, you're here, and we got to check the box. So you're good, right? And so I'll always remember when I worked for Big Brothers Big Sisters, we were at a national meeting and there was a board member from a local affiliate, a black man, and we were talking about this issue, and he said, it's kind of like being invited to the dance and then getting there and having nobody ask you to dance. And I was
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it can be a real issue. You and I have talked about this before. It's like, yes, you can find diverse board members that are genuinely interested in your cause, and you can engage them, and you can do this the right way. And I think your and my mantra is, if you're not able to do that, I think we usually say try harder, because almost always in those situations, you know, those people who do contribute to diversity, and we don't just mean ethnic diversity, but we mean diversity of background, diversity of class, diversity of thinking, diversity of profession, all of the things. I think we find 9 times out of 10 that if you really are systematic about it and really think about it, there's more out there than you might think. Maybe you're in rural Kentucky somewhere and it's really hard to find some kind of very specific board member, but I think for most organizations it's easier than they give credit for doing.
Well, and again, it goes back to the how few organizations are willing to actually take the time to engage people before they come onto the board. And so, I can make the case for that all day long, not just for diversity's sake, but just for board engagement's sake. But that's a topic for another day. Yeah, that was a good one.
All right. I have one left. I forget if you have one
I
more
have
left.
one
All
left.
right, fire away.
So the one other one is that drives me just wild when I hear is I have a lot of folks who will be talking about a donor, will be talking about a company or somebody, and they'll say, they really should be giving to us. And I'll be
That's
like, and why is that? Or they'll even list reasons, but the reasons will be like, well, they give to other organizations like us, their company is in our space, and I see him walking the dog down the street every day. They really should be giving to us. And I'm always like, what is this should business? Like, again, there are thousands of nonprofits out there. If everyone should be giving to everyone, then we'd all be giving a lot more money away.
I'd be okay, but it's not quite where we are. Yeah, I used to call this sort of the Oprah example when I first started my career because, I was working at a variety of different organizations, in the inner city, and folks saying like, "Well, Oprah should give to us. She should give to us. If she knew about it, she would give to us." And it's like, yeah, I guess, maybe. At a minimum, we should, who do you know, Oprah? Do you know Gail at least? Um, so, and I think that becomes true today as well. It's just like this belief, right? They're rich, and they should just do it, right? Because we have the best cause in the world, and there's no other causes quite like us. And I'm sure your cause is unique and wonderful and great, but you have to prove that to people, and you have to engage them, and they have to see that for themselves. They're not going to do it just because you have a good cause. To your earlier point and my earlier point around the meritocracy, it really isn't about that. It is necessary. Being meritorious is necessary but insufficient. You need to be meritorious, yes. Otherwise, there's not a lot to talk about. But that's just the starting point, and you build off from there. All right, my last one, Laurel, is it's not really a term. It's more just like a phenomena of when we're dealing with usually with major donors, where we're a client or someone will say to me like, but Bob, we're only at one meeting with this person, so what should we do? And that drives me crazy because it sort of presupposes a lot of things. So one, this person really has no genuine interest in what it is you're doing because it's clearly not a priority, and they're gonna just meet with this one time. And so instead of like thinking about how can we engage this person, how can we cultivate this person, how can we get this person to find the time to talk more with us. I mean, and one thing, I don't know if you agree with this or not, Laurel, but I find that busy people and successful people are really good at managing their time. If they care about something, they will find a way to do it. So it's not really about do they have the time. Everyone's busy. Everyone has a lack of time. Everyone has a lot of competing priorities. And so it becomes more about, are you impactful enough and engaging this person enough that they're willing to get involved with you and take another meeting and take another meeting and take another meeting, as opposed to the sort of deficit mindset of like, we only have this one meeting. They're never going to want to hear from us again because we're unworthy and we're not doing enough positive things in the world for us to feel good about getting that next meeting. So, we better jump in there, and why go through all of the very well rehearsed and thought through tenets of major gift fundraising? Let's just go in there and just ask for money and hope for the best. So that's
And
for
then
me.
wonder why people
Crazy.
don't want to meet with us again, because the only time that people ever want to meet with them is to ask them for money, right? I mean,
Too.
how refreshing would it be for somebody to sit down with a nonprofit organization and actually be asked questions about what they're motivated by, and how they like to be engaged, and why, what organizations they do prioritize and why, right? And then not be asked for money. And then maybe it was such an enjoyable conversation, and I was so impressed by the information you shared that we discussed with each other, right? When you shared that information and then you asked me to respond to that information, didn't just pitch me, right? That, wow, that was a really refreshing and interesting meeting. I might be likely to take another one, right? And I think it's not even that people don't think that they only get one meeting because they're deficient. I think people think that that's like the way it is. Like
I
these
think that's
kinds of people just they'll only give you one meeting. And so it's not even on, like, I don't even think people put it on themselves. I think they put it on like the system. That's just like how it works.
kind of just so busy and so important that the most we can expect, right, is one meeting from this person. Yeah, I think that's probably true. And yet many not-for-profits out there have very busy, generous people on their boards who not only take more than one meeting, but show up at board meeting after board meeting, run committees,
Good old
do special
Debs.
projects when there's a crisis, sometimes spend more time doing the volunteer work than they do their own jobs. I can certainly point to people that have done that, and these are people who run their own businesses, very successful, you know, businesses. So, well, Laurel, this has been fun. What did you want to add one last thing?
Nope, I'm good. I was, but yeah, no, good.
Well, this has been fun. Like I said, this is something that you and I maybe do privately, but yeah, hopefully everyone's enjoyed our little rants here today, and hopefully they map back to some useful fundraising principles. So,
Yeah,
uh,
and took some tips of, we hope this wasn't just a rant, but that we actually kind of gave
yes.
some actionable tips on what to do instead of that.
And if you find yourself guilty of any of our pet peeves, then please feel free to email us at mail@theosborngroup.com. And if we can help you break some of these habits, then they're more than happy to do so. But until the next time, Laurel, I'm Robert Osborne, on behalf of myself and Laurel McCombs. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks, everyone.